I'm going to begin, Ben, by saying, I mean, Ballard's novel is renowned for being almost kind of unfilmable, which you've obviously proved to be not the case. But needless to say, it's a very ambitious tale for you. Was there ever a point, perhaps at the early stages, where you thought, maybe this is going to be too much?
I never bought that thing of it being unfilmable. I mean, I think that when you look at something like Naked Lunch and you see like a completely fractured narrative, that's a hard book to adapt. I think High Rise, when you look at it, there's quite a lot of concessions to cinema in it. It's kind of got quite the kind of way that people move through the building and the different the 3 points of view of Lang, Wilder, and Royal. That didn't seem like it was so far away from how how a film would be structured. And also, it's a very visual book, so when I read it, I could just see all these images kind of jumping off the screen. So, no, I never was that worried about it in that respect. But I think you just can't, it's not something that you would worry about, going into a project. You kind of can't. If you were that scared about it, you probably just wouldn't get out of bed.
Because I mean, Ballard was evidently kind of able to foresee our sort of fixation on technology. Must have been quite interesting to navigate your way around that, in the sense that this obviously set in the 70s, but we've got the kind of benefit of hindsight where we know that all came true. So how did you do you think that was beneficial to your project, or do you think that did you try and approach it in a sense that as though it was almost predictive of the future?
I think that obviously, the question of whether it should have been set contemporarily is that we found that a lot of the technology that he was talking about, the end game of it, the end game of social media, is that everybody's reporting everything all the time, and the idea of a tower that's away in a corner of somewhere where no one goes and pokes their nose into it just wouldn't work, wouldn't fly. So, but I think it was really interesting that the prospect of taking a book that's basically a science fiction book and filming it as a period piece, but it's set in the past, but the story itself believes it's in the future, so it's at the same time period and science fiction. That was intriguing, and also that we were in the future, looking to the past, looking to the future. So that kind of that opened up an interesting space.
It must be quite fun to depict the 70s on screen, but was it always quite important to you to do it in a subtle manner and not get to kind of caricature like the 70s can often be sort of portrayed on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was born in '72, so I've got a fairly good memory of what the '70s looked like, and I think any decade is the sum of all the time that's come before it. Your own house will be, it doesn't look like it was ripped from the pages of a design magazine circa 2016. It's like a mishmash of all sorts of bits and bobs. Some things that you get from your parents or your grandparents, or So and we took that kind of way of thinking to High Rise, so that it isn't like it's totally 1970s. That's the only design stuff in it. But also, I think it's when you look in a design magazine now, and you leaf through it, you won't find anything that you recognise from this moment. But then when in 20 years' time they make a film about 2016, it's those magazines they'll be pulling out as reference, and then suddenly you're in this situation where the period movies don't look anything like the actual period.
So, I mean, was the sort of 70s London that you grew up in anything like the kind of high rise that we see depicted on the screen?
No, but the interiors were like that, and certainly the way that adults acted was a bit like that, only without the murder and cannibalism and stuff.
I read that Hiddleston was one that you really wanted in this project. I mean, he was superb in the role. I mean, he can't have let you down on this. I mean, how much of a pleasure was it to collaborate with him on this project?
Yeah, I mean, we, at the beginning of any project, you have to kind of have a wish list of people that you want to work with, and Hiddleston was at the top of the list for us, and which always, I've done loads of interviews about this now, and it always sounds like bullshit, but it's a fact, So, and we kind of, we wanted Hiddleston. We put him at the top of the list, and then, but we never thought for a minute that we'd get him, And then as it went on, we did. So it was happy days, So, but yeah, I mean, I working with Tom was really interesting because he throws himself into these roles so completely, and he's like a precision instrument when you work with him on set, and also when, you know, as part of his research, he went to see a pathologist and see an autopsy, which is you know, a step much further than I'd ever go.
Yeah.
And I was offered to, the pathologist said, "Oh yeah, come along. You know, whenever I'm doing an autopsy, just pop in and I'll show you it." And I'm like, yeah, I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
You know, it's well, these things are once seen can never be unseen. You know? And I did talk to Tom immediately after he'd seen someone have their face peeled off their head, and he didn't sound so great.
No. I'd imagine he would. But what happens when you have someone like Hiddleston on a project who comes with obviously a huge following, particularly off the back of the kind of Marvel films, and even with Luke Evans with the whole kind of Hobbit kind of fan base he's collected, is that you almost might have a whole new kind of set of audience members coming to see your film that otherwise might not have seen it. I mean, does that almost, because I mean this is very dark and kind of quite messed up, does that almost make you sort of chuckle in some regards that there's going to be quite a few people that maybe aren't quite prepared for what's in store?
Well, I don't know. With Hiddleston fans, I think they're probably used to it by now because he has a kind of a split kind of career where he does like indie arty stuff while doing massive kind of tentpole movies. So I think that, you know, I'd like to have, you know, be sitting behind people who've come from Avengers to go and see the Joe and a Hog movies, you know, that's you know, that kind of split. So I think they're probably adventurous types, I think, you know, already.
And just quickly, Free Fire's next for you, and obviously Brie Larson's the star, one of the stars of that, and she picked up the Oscar. You must have been sort of thrilled for her, and what was she like to collaborate with?
When I first met Brie, I'd met her in LA, and I was introduced to her by my agents, and when we were casting Free Fire, and it was, you know, I got on with her really well, and you know, I'd seen some of the work she'd done, and really liked it. And Room itself was just a kind of, I could feel the slight radiation off of it. It had happened, but I was hearing from Film 4 that it was really good, but I didn't know anything more than that. And as time's gone on, it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're just like, oh, you know, it's just incredible. So just an incredible run of like kind of picking up awards, and I don't even bother congratulating her anymore because there's so many in a row. So oh, fuck it, you know. So yeah, and it's all kind of slightly unreal, you know, just to have worked with someone and then they're picking up an Oscar is brilliant. So yeah,
probably only good for the film as well.
Well, you know, I'm not so cynical as, you know, but yeah, it's great. It'll be now Brie Larson's Free Fire, with just a big photo of her face and everyone's little faces along the bottom. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey